And it does say we are live. So, Madam Chair, go ahead.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Woodlands County Economic Development Committee meeting for Thursday, April 24th, 2025. It's now 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Okay, and just looking and asking if there's any additions to the agenda, any conversation. If not, then I'd be open to a motion to adopt the agenda.
If we want to talk about stuff in the closed part, do we bring it up now or do we just bring it up at that time?
Is it something that is on the agenda now that you just want to go further into detail on?
I don't believe it's in the closed part at the moment.
No, but if it's in the regular agenda, we, as long as we make sure that there's a mention of it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I think there is some of it in the agenda now, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right,
A motion to adopt the agenda as
awesome.
presented.
Okay, I'll call the question, is there any further discussion? No, call the question, all in favor? All right, gotcha. Thank you, and that is passed. All right, moving on to adoption of the minutes. Is there any discussion on the minutes, any errors, changes?
I move to adopt them as presented.
Perfect. Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Awesome.
Favor.
All right, moving right along, so to our delegation, the welcome ladies and Golden Triangle Snowmobile update. So did you want to pop in for a sec there, Bert?
You bet. I'd love to do a brief introduction and we'll maybe just ask, I think the ladies here are familiar with most of our board members, but it might be good to just sort of to go around, have everyone introduce themselves and state their position on our Economic Development Committee. My pleasure to introduce or reintroduce to everybody. We have Candace, who is our new Executive Director for the Golden Triangle. And of course, Cindy Brooks, Cindy has worked in the Executive Director role in the past with the GT and is currently with the Whitecourt Trailblazers. And between these two ladies, we pull off all of the rallies and all of the snowmobile show and all of the other great events that the GT does throughout the year. So I'll throw it over to the committee for introductions, and then ladies, you'll be ready to go.
All right, do you want to start, Dave?
Sure. David Turcott, member at large for the Economic Development Committee for Woodlands County.
I'm Patricia McNeil, member at large and the chair.
I'm Kristen Belkey. I'm a member at large.
Shelley Hiddle, I'm vice chair and member at large.
Throw that time around.
And online, we have our counselors, Counselor Dean and Counselor Wilhelm.
I'm Councillor Wilhelm.
And Counselor Wilhelm, yes?
Hi, Cindy and Candace.
Just sorry to jump in here, guys. I'm not getting any video, and I'm not getting any video from your side. So just so you know, I can't see what's going on, but I can hear it, so I can participate that way.
We did
Oh,
it on
okay.
purpose. Use your imagination.
We can hear you, so we can hear you and we can see you now. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, I can't see anything either.
That's odd.
Okay, I'll see if I can fix that without mucking anything up. My apologies, because we had it running this afternoon.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, Bert, it's okay. We've done enough of these meetings just listening. So if you can't, it's not easy to fix. Don't worry. I'm sure we can muddle through.
Okay, thank you.
Are we good to jump in?
Yep, you
All
bet,
right.
ladies, you go right ahead. So,
All right.
so everyone, you'll notice there is an attached presentation that the ladies have put together, and they are presenting to a number of the Golden Triangle funding municipalities, and we actually had a pretty exciting year because we had something this year that we haven't had in a while, and that was snow.
Okay, so like Bert had mentioned, we put together a little presentation, so it was in the meeting package. We were hoping to have it up for viewing, but this works just fine. So we'll be following along on my laptop.
Oh.
So to start with, we're here to talk about the Golden Triangle, which is a 15-year-old agreement already. The Golden Triangle is basically a bucket list adventure for all snowmobilers in the province, BC, all across. Everyone wants to ride the Golden Triangle. So if you're not familiar, the Golden Triangle is a 6 municipalities and 3 snowmobile club agreement. So that includes, of course, Woodlands County and the town of Whitecourt, the MD of Greenview, the town of Fox Creek, town of Swan Hills, and Big Lakes County. And then the 3 snowmobile clubs being the Whitecourt Trailblazers, the Fox Creek Northland Snowgoers, and then the Swan Hills Snowgoers. I guess we're on the third little slide there. That's just a little bit of the Golden Triangle history. I'm not going to read through all of that. 15 years of history. I won't go through that. You guys can kind of mosey through that when you have the time. We started Cindy will be able to say how long it's been, but we started a Iron Sledder Challenge. Thankfully, like Bert had said, we did have snow this year, so we were able to have all 3 rallies, one being super cold, one being mildly cold, one being fantastic weather. So we had 19 Iron Sledder medalists this year and 31 Golden Sledder medalists. So what an Iron Sledder is when a rider rides in all 3 of the Snowmobile Club rallies. And then your Golden Sledder if you just make it to 2 out of 3 of the rallies. So every participant that is a medalist gets mailed a medal in the mail. And then we also do a $1,000 cash prize, a $250 cash prize, and then each of the 3 rallies also does a $250 prize draw. Also throughout our season, which is we hope to be December, but it's usually beginning of January up until the end of March, we host a QR checking contest. This year we had 120 entries into that, and what that is we have posters up at all of our lookouts and our cabins throughout the whole trail system, throughout all 3 snowmobile clubs, and people can just enter that, hey, I was here, and it helps us kind of track who's on the trail system and how many people we get some good numbers that way. And we also do a draw for that, a $250 Visa card for all of those entries. So a little bit about the Golden Triangle Partnership. The trail system's cleaned and groomed and ready for riding usually February 1st. We'd hope to have it earlier, but sometimes nature isn't good to us when it comes to creek crossings, etc. $20,000 is budgeted for each club annually for their trail maintenance and grooming, and that's just for the Golden Triangle section. So the Whitecourt Trailblazers in particular have 485 kilometers of trails in the system, and we only have, is it 60 kilometers in the Golden Triangle. So that's a whole lot of trail, but our GT section is only about 60 kilometers. So we do about 2 passes with the Snowcats with that funding from the GT. And then of course the Golden Triangle, we promote the Iron Sledder Challenge, the QR contest each year, and we also host a booth at the Alberta Snowmobile Show in Edmonton every year. And that's just all 3 clubs coming together, supporting each other, promoting the Golden Triangle. Each club volunteers time to host that booth as well. For funding, we also have a capital reserve fund that is $30,000 allotted to a singular club on a rotational basis. So for this past season, 2024-2025, the Whitecourt Trailblazers were given that capital reserve, and then it just rotates through the clubs, and that's for kind of emergency trail maintenance, which is unfortunate that we have, but we do have the emergency, like funding large mulching and trail maintenance projects. And then we have a little map of the Golden Triangle connecting all three of the towns and the clubs. Some season stats. So like I had said, our QR check-in, there was 120. Again, not everyone's taking the time to stop. So that number is very low because people aren't taking the time to quickly scan. But just the Whitecourt Trailblazers visitor logbooks for the season was just under 1,000 visitors, and not everyone will sign our book either. So we had some good high numbers this year at our cabins. The Golden Triangle currently has just under 1,000 Facebook followers and a new Instagram, so that's why the followers are low on that. Events we did this year, again, the snowmobile show in Edmonton, and then the annual rallies, which Fox Creek actually hosted the Alberta's Day of Snowmobiling. So they hosted a pretty big event, partnering with the Alberta Snowmobile Association and the town of Fox Creek. So they hosted a pretty cool event with dog sledding, and they held a vintage sled ride and actually gave away a vintage sled. They did a big event at their rally this year. And then Swan Hills was the Alberta Snowmobile Association Jamboree host this year. So some of the rallies can be a lot bigger than just a regular rally. We can be in partner with other people and do a bigger event. Again, just a little bit of snowmobiling by numbers, some kind of stats in there that you can read through. I won't read through all of it. Some importance of snowmobiling in our region. Offering families a unique way to explore the great outdoors during winter. The activity engages both kids and adults, promoting teamwork and encouraging a love for nature. The activity prevents considerable physical and mental health benefits and rejuvenates and alleviates stress by immersing yourself into nature. And alleviates anxiety and depression. Volunteers being the backbone of our organization. Just with the Trailblazers alone, there was about 3,500 hours put into the club just this season. So there are hours upon hours of work that goes in. And then we kind of moved into a little bit about the Whitecourt Trailblazers. Of course, the Whitecourt Trailblazers are part of the GT, which is fantastic, but then the Whitecourt Trailblazers are also our local snowmobile club for the town of Whitecourt and of course Woodlands County. Majority of our trail system is in Woodlands County, and the Trailblazers are 45 years old.
Wow.
Like I said earlier, we have 485 kilometers of trails, volunteers. We have amazing community support throughout the town, the county, and many businesses in the town and individuals as well. We have 2 staging areas, which one being the Eagle River staging area, and then Woodlands County gives us access to the Groat Creek staging area. 3 cabins, 4 lookouts, 2 snowcats, a club truck, and then last season we did purchase a club snowmobile and a mini drag groomer, which you can see in the middle photo there. Our club sled with the groomer on the back, the one on the left. And then we've got a little map of Whitecourt Trailblazers and the Golden Triangle, kind of where our sections are on the Golden Triangle. Some issues of concerns that, not only the Whitecourt Trailblazers are dealing with, but that all 3 clubs deal with, Fox Creek and Swan Hills. Older trails requiring major work all the time, which is where that emergency capital reserve funding can come in, which is fantastic. The increase in industry along our trail system, increase in costs of equipment and manpower, It costs about $1,000 per kilometer for major work, like brushing and mulching and rerouting, developing new trail, etc. About $200 an hour to groom and fill. We spend about $15,000 just to groom our north side one time. That's just for the Trailblazers. And then about $15,000 to groom our south trails one time. And again, the $20,000 to groom the Golden Triangle section. That's just a 60-kilometer section. The Whitecourt Trailblazers alone budget over $140,000 to clean and groom our trails and for our annual snowcat maintenance. We have an operating budget of about $240,000. The government AGLC licensing is more complex, and the Trails Act implementation and the governing rules of that. There's things that we deal with.
We're still learning.
Still learning. A quick summary of our club hours. Like I said, it actually has changed a little bit since I created this. So just over 3,500 of seasonal club hours. A quick summary of our season there. That's for the Trailblazers. We attended the What's Out There event at the Allen and G. Miller Center. We host a September AGM where a new executive is voted in. We completed some fantastic cabin upgrades to our Summit cabin. New floor, painted the roof. Our annual snowmobile raffle went live October 1st. We attended the snowmobile show for the Whitecourt Trailblazers host their own booth, and then we also help with the Golden Triangle booth. We attended the ASA annual Awards of Excellence, the banquet that the ASA hosts, and the Whitecourt Trailblazers nominations were all awarded this past season. We did a snow ambulance presentation at the fire department in Whitecourt here. We attended the Santa Claus parade here in town, our trail cleaning hours there for summer to November. We host a kids' Christmas party every year. Sledding started. We host a guided fun ride as well in January. We had 50 participants there. And then our annual snowmobile rally in February. The 208 rider stat, that's just for adults. We also had 36 youths. So our total riders were 244 this past season. And then we have a full map of the entire Whitecourt Trailblazers trail system, where we connect to Fox Creek, Swan Hills, and then we also connect to the Edson Snow Seekers as well. I also put in there, again, just for the Whitecourt Trailblazers, our upcoming season plans. I think next season's gonna be a pretty big one for us. Again, we are gonna attend the sled show like we do every year. We're hoping to go in the Santa Claus parade again, have our guided fun ride, our annual rally. But it was also brought up to host a Golden Triangle ride. And I'm gonna turn it over to Cindy if she wanted to touch on that a little bit.
So in all the years, I'd say probably the past 15 years, we've had a 2-day rally, and this was the first year that we actually only had a 1-day rally. And there was lots of, we went through COVID, we had, the last 5 years we had rallies canceled. We were just gonna try and mix it up. Let's have a social, let's have a dance. Well, that didn't really go over that well, so we said, you know what, let's bring back a 2-day event. So we said, let's host a Golden Triangle ride on the Sunday. The idea is to do that bucket list, do the full 350 kilometers of Golden Triangle Trail. And hopefully we are able to do that, with the proper amount of snow and that all the grooming is complete, that the trails will allow us to do that. If not, we will be riding on the Golden Triangle. It'll just maybe look a little different. We might just go to one of the cabins or just, make a different route. But our idea is to host a 2-day event. That keeps the people in our community in for another day. We probably have Typically, it's over 50% are out of towners. So getting the people to our one-day event, you know, to maybe perhaps do the second day. We are trying to also partner with Fox Creek and Swan Hills. We've put it out there to them if they are interested to join us or be a part of it or to even host their cabins. That will allow, you know, anybody who's coming through to answer some of the questions at each of the locations. So we're just in the beginning planning of that, but we will definitely be doing something on a Sunday. So that's pretty exciting. I know there's lots of people that, you know, if they can't do the 350 Ks, they'll just go to one of the cabins. So we'll maybe have a short and a long ride that day.
Yeah, we definitely want to be utilizing the fantastic trail system we have and get more people out on the full Golden Triangle trail system, because it is a bucket list. It can be a little bit intimidating or daunting for people that don't know where they're going or where to start. So it's kind of like, okay, well, let's kind of host an event and have checkpoints ideally, and then it might not be so scary for people. So the upcoming season for the Trailblazers, we are planning on building 2 new outhouses for 2 of our, is it the lookout? Yeah, our lookouts. Some new wood sheds and complete some more cabin upgrades. We are purchasing a heated enclosed trailer for equipment transportation, as well as purchasing a snow ambulance. And we are currently working on a trails inventory project, and that'll give us information for possible future multi-use trails. There's a little bit of information, just kind of comparison of Canadian Snowmobile Organization to Alberta to the Golden Triangle. Just a few stats there. And I think that's it. Anything to add?
Thank you, ladies. Okay, Kristen and then Bert.
I just have a few questions.
Yeah.
Number one, what is a snowcat?
A snowcat?
Yeah.
So that's our groomer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a single, talk about the snowcat, I'm like, I
That's a
don't
good
know.
question.
It's very large.
There is there any pictures?
There's a picture of one on the slide that says White Court's 45 years old.
Yes, the first slide of the White
They're
Court
both there.
Trailblazers, they're both in that picture.
Oh, that thing.
Yeah.
Ours is like, what is this thing that's expensive?
Yes, they are very expensive, and they're getting fairly old too, so the maintenance on them is getting pricey, and yeah.
We're spending $50,000 the last 3 years on our cats. So we're looking at purchasing a new cat in the near future.
You had another question, Kristen?
I, 2 of them. Why do you need a GLC license? If you held the dance, is that what it was for?
Oh, so for AGLC, we get licenses for, of course, for our dance, even if we're not hosting a dance. We kind of do a social, so we get liquor license for that. We have 50/50 at our rallies as well. And then also for our annual snowmobile raffle. That is our biggest raffle, which runs from October, starts October 1st, and we draw it at our rally in February.
So it's not like you're selling booze, it's,
No,
and where do you get your money from?
so our fund.
Is that too nosy?
No,
Is that why we're here?
that's a great
I'm like, what do you want from us?
No, that's a great question. That's a great question. So, are you talking about the Golden Triangle perspective or the White Court Trailblazers perspective?
Maybe both, because you guys, annual budget of $240,000.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if you fundraise some of that, I'm like, great job. Great work.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you share so much money in amongst all of the organizations, like that's great cooperation.
Yeah. So for the GT side of it, the 6 municipalities put in $15,000 annually to the GT. So then each club gets 20 every season. And then we also have a capital reserve that rotates. So for the White Court Trailblazer side, we get $20,000 annually from the GT. That's one of our funding.
Right.
We also have our sled raffle, which is one of our fundraisers. We get from the town of White Court, we have a tourism grant we get from them annually. FRIA, and we also get money from the Alberta Snowmobile Association. Did I miss one?
Trail passes, when
Trail
we have
passes.
annual trail passes, there's a percentage, I think it's
We get
47% or something.
from our trail passes.
Yeah, so that portion does come to us. The Alberta Snowmobile Association, through the Trails Act, they were granted $4 million for 4 years. And so there's 36 clubs in Alberta, and it's divided amongst each of the clubs annually. And that funding is based on our kilometers, 485 kilometers, as well as our trail passes that we sell. We get a portion of that. So that helps us with any of the infrastructure, grooming, pretty much everything that we could use. We do have, without the funding, we would not exist.
I missed an important one too, sponsors,
Yes.
of course. All of it, we have some fantastic sponsors, specific businesses in town that will take on to sponsor one of our cabins. So they give us an amount annually or every 3 years kind of thing to sponsor and have their name on a specific cabin, or on our snowcats as well. They have their names on there. As well as trailheads. We have people that will sponsor a trailhead. So just as an example, the town of Whitecourt, through their tourism grant, sponsors one of our trailheads, so their sign's up there. We just got a new sponsor this season that'll have their sign up on our trailhead, so we have some incredible sponsors.
Thank you. And Bert, you had a question?
Yeah, so Councillor Dean is actually our council representative to the Golden Triangle, so I wanted just to see if there was anything that he wanted to add, but I do just want to clarify. It is two completely separate organizations, so
Yes.
the Golden Triangle,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's a six-way municipal agreement, but then you have the Trailblazers, which is its own separate nonprofit organization, or nonprofit society.
Okay, did you want to chime in here as well, Councillor Dean?
Well, all I would say is that the municipal participation in the Golden Triangle meetings has been strong. The general message coming from all of the municipalities is that they really recognize the value of the organization, and they support the efforts that the Golden Triangle puts forth for the community.
Excellent. Is there other questions as well? I know I have a couple also.
So just one last point to add to that as well. So while it is a six-way municipal partnership, Woodlands County is in the enviable position of actually providing the treasury support. And so that's why Cindy and I and Candace and I know each other so well, because we have a separate bank account that is established by Woodlands County and that is managed by Woodlands County. And all of the invoices for the organization go through the board and committee, and then through me to our finance for payment. So all of those payments actually come from Woodlands County back through for all of the GT expenses.
And I wanted to chime in and thank you ladies for the presentation. I really appreciate it. And I know that myself, and I used to have sleds or family snowmobiled here all the time. And it's something that I haven't been doing the last number of years. But one of the challenges that, especially with snow and the years that we weren't able to carry events and so on, I've been asked different times about how can we spend the amount that we spend for the GT and not support some other types of organizations and just other initiatives for recreation. So one of the things I really appreciated in your presentation today is, and I'm sure you did it before, but maybe I just heard it a different way today, was when you talked about the volunteer hours. Because 3,500 volunteer hours at $15 an hour is about a $52,500 contribution to the area in free labor. So that really shows the dedication of those people that care about the trail system, that are putting their time and effort forward. So when I look at a $15,000 ask per year to council, it's something that I find a lot more palatable when I can see that kind of volunteer involvement. And also seeing that with a $240,000 budget, that's something you guys are spending predominantly in the community. You know, so I really see the benefits there. I really like the idea of the QR check-ins. And is this the first year that you've done that?
No,
Okay.
it's not. How long has that been?
I would say 3 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And we have to remember, we've had no snow
No.
and no rallies and
Yeah,
whatnot.
because it feels like something that will catch on more.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, I could see more participation coming out of that. And so there was that. Also, when you had mentioned about Fox Creek and what they did to expand their rallies to include other activities, that's something that I was wondering, is there a plan as well to kind of do that in this area?
We have done that multiple years. Yeah, we've had.
I remember before, like, definitely huge
Yeah, the
events.
invasions, we've had the invasions. We had an invasion in 2020 last time.
Mhm.
We do partner with, I can't remember the name of the group.
That's okay, because I
You
know
got me
some of
some-
those were incredibly exciting events that were extremely well attended.
Yeah, some of the entertainment groups, we've kind of had conversations with them every year. Are you doing a show? Are you doing something that we could collaborate with? We've been in contact with other volunteer groups as well and involved them. If we've needed more volunteer work or volunteer help, we've approached different clubs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then basically, I guess my last one was, you know, there was two, sorry. How can we leverage other tourism opportunities at your events? Such as, for example, maybe summer events, some other things. So when you guys have a rally and, you know, you've got a lot of people coming into the community, is there something more that we could be doing to showcase maybe other events throughout the year in the county?
Absolutely, we invite Woodlands County every year to come and do a checkpoint with
Mhm.
us. And, yeah, I mean, even any other event that we do the fun ride, we do the British Sled Show.
No, I know you guys are doing all that, but sorry, I'll reframe. It's more that we can do to support you in giving you more information or connecting other tourism opportunities. You know, so it was more like from a committee perspective, if that's something that we can forward for you guys. And it doesn't have to be something you answer now, it's just a kind of food for thought, like if we're, you know, is there more ways that we can support you as opposed to just financially?
I think like popping out, one of the biggest things is a checkpoint at our rally. I think that's a pretty big one. I know the town of Whitecourt hosted a checkpoint at our rally this season, and they handed out muffins and juice, and they did what did they do?
They did a draw.
Because I did hear some feedback, a resident had contacted me and said, why is Woodlands County not supporting the sled rally? And I was like, I know Woodlands County has been actually a great supporter and with, even like you said, with the accounting and so on like that. But if residents don't see us at a checkpoint, then they don't necessarily know that we're, you know. So with that part, that's kind of the reason I was asking is what more can we do?
I
to
think
support you?
that's a pretty big one. I mean, you're seeing hundreds of people coming through our rallies. That's a pretty big one.
Right.
And I think cause we do a poker rally, so people kind of pull poker cards. So the town had pulled the last card, so that's kind of an option. Then people have to stop by to get their poker card. I think that's a big one that would jump out at me for an idea.
Okay, excellent. And then my last one, of course, is always, where do you stand? You had mentioned about multi-use trails. And that's something, especially when your season is so, you know, can be 4 weeks short or not at all, then how can we work together with other groups? And I know that there's been some steps. Can you guys maybe elaborate on that and what that looks like going forward?
Well, right now, we're actually doing an inventory list on our trail system. We're trying to figure out where we could have some multi-use. access, whether, you know, it would be snowshoeing, hiking, fat biking, any of those kinds of activities, horseback riding, you know, looking at where the trails will sustain and they'll, you know, be able to withhold the impact of the folks on the trails in the summer.
Right.
Because that's the biggest thing. We can sustain the traffic in the winter, the footprint is very low, but in the summer, we have lots of muskeg areas. So trying to figure out where those, you know, where all the creek crossings are, because then again, we're into building bridges, we're into putting money into that kind of a, you know, sustainability of a trail system. And, you know, how does that look in terms of how can we, you know, form partnerships, I guess. What is Woodlands County, I guess, doing for that? Are they doing some promoting? Are they doing some partnerships? Are they, you know, is that something that Woodlands County is interested in? I mean, we can be a part of the group, and I mean, for us to take a lead on it, we're just trying to figure out where we actually could, you know, invite this opportunity with Woodlands County and the town of Whitecourt. You know, it's a big project.
Definitely, and hopefully that's something, I know that regionally, there's been a lot of conversation lately about increasing the tourism footprint in the area. So maybe that's something that we can take from the conversation to take back to some of the other tables that we sit at and work to kind of bring that conversation forward. Because definitely it can't fall to just one group. And when I see some of the advancements that groups like the Mountain Bike Association have done, excuse me, pardon me, and some of their wins, you know, I know that there's a lot of opportunity for the trails. It's how do we bring everybody together? So, and then ideally, it would remove some of the burden from your association.
Well, absolutely, because that's what we're finding is the volunteers are aging and the volunteers are not there. If we have the trail system being used in the summer, and we have that tree where they can take the trees away and the brush and do some of that mulching and kind of keep the trails at bay, because when there's no traffic on those trails, the last 5 years, we just spent over $75,000 in mulching this winter just to get our trails so we can actually go on. There was a picture in the slide presentation. That was 1 year, and the willows and alders were 12 feet high. So it only takes 1 year of no traffic. So that's where we're starting to understand. We have to get people on the trail, but to an extent of not damaging the trail as well. So if that means there's an ATV section on a road, you know, we might be open to that. You have to look at how the impact will be, and I think that part of that inventory and that study will be helpful for us.
Does the group have any further questions? Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was a great presentation.
Okay.
And we hope it'll be a great year, but that we have no snow until fall.
Glad to clarify that.
Thank you. All right, if somebody would like to go forward with a motion to accept the delegation.
I'll make a motion to accept the delegation.
Okay. Alrighty, and any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. All right, so let's moving right along and get into new business. Good to see you. Thanks. So I want to jump into the discussion and follow-up items from 2025 Experience Alberta Conference for the EDA, and I do kind of just want to jump in there as well and just say I definitely had felt I was missing out, so unfortunately I was super excited about this conference, and the night before we were leaving, my other half got admitted to hospital and we spent the week in hospital, and I didn't get to go. So from what I understand, I think somebody was able to take the ticket last minute.
We'll work all of that through. We did have, I think the registration was taken by another agency. I have to follow up with EDA 100% to make sure, but yeah. It was, it was an event that was bursting at the seams anyways.
I wouldn't doubt it. So I'm really super excited and curious to hear some of your guys' feedback and what you had thought of it, so.
Wants to start?
I can start.
Sure, I think that sounds good, and this is where I'm happy to have the recording, because I know everyone is gonna have a ton of great ideas and great feedback, and it's an intense conference. It's like drinking from a fire hose. So thank you all so much for your time and attention and everything when you were there.
So some of the sessions that I went to were things on, I went to one on about cooperatives, which was interesting. Everything from like your typical co-op store type thing to like cooperatives for artists, which they actually have one at Lac La Biche, which appealed to me because of what I do. Not saying that it's a good fit for what we have right now, but it was interesting to see how cooperatives could be applied in a community and the value that they could bring. I also went to a session that I really liked on partnerships, and it was partnering between municipalities, businesses, and utilities to make key projects happen. So one of the examples was at Coaldale, working with their power utility and a business opportunity, and they put in this huge warehousing thing that's all a freezer. So it's like this huge building, and it's kept at minus 15 C, which of course takes an enormous amount of power. And so there was, the business opportunity, but they also needed to make sure that they got the power. So the municipality, worked with the utility and the business to make it all happen in a very short period of time. And it brought a large economic boost to their community. And that was just one of the examples in that session. There was also the gig with Wonder Valley in that same session, and how they worked with some of the industry partners in their region to make those projects happen. And again, part of that one was also with the utility for the power generation that is going to come with the Wonder Valley project. So that was a really interesting one to see how all the different players work together. And it's not just the municipality finding a major investment. There's infrastructure that you need to work with, whatever that might be. And these examples were ATCO and Fortis, but there was other examples that they talked about as well. So that was really interesting. And I went to another one on emission reductions for Alberta, which was interesting to see where and it's not carbon tax, but basically the carbon tax for Alberta industry, where it goes into this fund, and then how this fund is allocated back out, and some of the opportunities that came out of that. And I went to another one on supporting manufacturing workplace development, which wasn't maybe very applicable to us, but it was interesting to see kind of some of the education piece that goes into some of that. The sessions on Friday morning I found most interesting. There was an individual from ATB that did a presentation on like the economic status basically for Alberta and for Canada, the impact of tariffs, all that. And it was really interesting to see that big picture. And it's not all doom and gloom. There's definitely lots of opportunities out there. So I found that he was very factual, like he was about what's going on. There's opportunities. One of the biggest opportunities is tourism, because Canadians are going to stay home and Americans are still coming here, and people who potentially would have gone to the States potentially are now going to be coming to Canada. So he said tourism in Canada is going to do very well in the current tariff world, so to speak. So it was interesting to see there's pluses and minuses always, right? There was a session by Invest Alberta, which I thought was really cool. And then, of course, Wonder Valley, the key guys for that. So Kyle, who kind of spearheaded the development of the gig, and then two of the major investment party people were like a little talk that they did, which was very, very interesting about what Wonder Valley is going to look like. So all in all, it was definitely, I learned a lot going to the conference for sure. Very much exciting to see that there's lots of opportunity. We just have to figure out what we want and how we're going to go for it, make a plan.
I love it. That was an enthusiastic report. Thank you.
It was worth it to send me, Jose.
Who wants to go next?
I can go next. EDA is always a fantastic experience. I don't take quite the same amount of notes as that one. But one thing, there's a few key takeaways I took. One of them was industry is interested in speed. And part of the things that they really want to know when they're looking for investment is power, people, policy, and ping is what they said. And so I think what I really received from a lot of these ones was that they are looking for us to be ready. And I don't know if we are. And like the amount of money and effort and holy cow that Greenview put into land, that was amazing. Did they say $70 million?
Yeah.
Yes.
170? 70?
Roughly 12
what
years,
they've
$70 million as the Greenview investment
Yes.
so far.
Like that's amazing, right? And so like look what they did with, that's a lot of money. Let's say that, but look what they landed, right? And so I don't think that maybe our opportunity is going to be 70 million, but I know that we can do something. And so like I said, those are things: power, people, policy, ping. Another big thing that I found was I like these little phrases. So one of them was regional is the new local. So we've been, people have been pushing local, but they're saying regional, like those collaborations between different municipalities and stuff really is better bang for your buck, I guess. What gets measured gets managed. So what are we paying attention to, and what are we looking at, and what are we not looking at, as what are we missing and not getting managed? I think that's about the biggest things, I think. Yeah. People interested in development-ready land.
Awesome.
You can read from your novel.
Yeah. Set the timer. No, I really enjoyed the conference. I did not stop from the morning of April 9th until the end. I did not take a break. I attended every session, and it was great. So, talking about the co-op one, the first one, it was just neat to learn more about co-ops and just, the fact that we have over 5,600 co-ops in Canada. And what I took away from that one, the presenter, Kyle, had spoken about the fact in Alberta that we need to start considering two types of co-ops, and the first was utilities and the second one was housing. And so he spoke to those and just gave an idea of what it means to have a co-op, right? That idea of it's a way to do business, there's limited liability, all those pieces, member owners, user-focused, equal governance. So yeah, he shared some great examples of them, and so that was just for me, that was more of a learning experience, and really taking some big things away, including just the idea of how to support them. He mentioned attend at AGM, and I was like, I never thought of it. Here I get my REA and TRL Gas Co-op, and that letter's in there that says attend the annual general meeting, and I never have. So maybe it's something I need to consider, right? Another one of the sessions I went to was the one on, it was in the opening, the agriculture, agri-food, and manufacturing. And I guess, some of the statements that stood out to me is that the world needs a lot more from Canada. And so just that idea of, how do we develop entrepreneurship by looking at our imports and what we could in fact manufacture right here in Canada. Of course, during that presentation, you're also thinking about what our seasons are like here, which does limit our ability to produce in some capacity, but talking about the greenhouses and all those pieces. So but basically one of the takeaways is just that idea, especially with what's going on in the world right now, it's just decreasing that reliance on other countries, right? Let me keep going. Energy, energy, petrochemicals and renewables. I love that one, and hearing about the different projects and hearing about Fort McMurray and the fact that they have a new process that they're exploring to get to new layers of bitumen. So, some of the statements that were made at the Invest Alberta one was just the fact that 40% of investment in Alberta was rural last year, and so that it's happening. So how do we make that draw to our municipality? The life sciences, health, and biotech. It was a big conversation on, how our economic well-being is enhanced when we focus on seniors. And so there was some really neat data shared there as well, when it comes to, I think, when this presenter, I didn't put his name down, was speaking about dementia and loneliness and how if we would invest more in those things, because his claim was that there are ways to cure dementia, was just that, as a province, we could save $46 billion in 5 years if we were able to address it, right? So you think about those dollars, like that's significant. I really like the one on tech innovation, just talking about AI, and I think for me, just seeing the impact that we have with AI in our schools and how it's essentially really being pushed on us to start exploring it more in the sense of making our lives easier and making just making ourselves more effective and efficient, right, when it comes to using it. Next page. The visitor economy, there was one, they spoke to tourism, and it really got me thinking about, and loving having the GT here presenting, but just that when it comes to tourism, it was a very big focus. I think we heard a lot about tourism in a number of sessions, and just it's the time to leverage what we have in our communities. And, they talked about the fact that Banff is known throughout the world, and especially in Europe, with the visitors that you have coming every year, but just that idea of, while we may not get to that scale of Banff, how can we attract more people to our region, right, with what we have to offer? Next. The game on the sports tourism, again, you look at the partnerships, the Golden Triangle, and just the conversations we just had, but thinking about our infrastructure and what we currently have, just that idea of focusing, with a lot of the younger population now, cross-country skiing, mountain biking, not the dead man race, they're like that cross-country race, like all those things.
The
And so,
death race.
yeah, the death race. And so right away I thought about, no, we're not going up mountains, but you look at our trail system, there's some excellent areas that you could do some.
400 and how many kilometers?
Yeah.
485 kilometers.
So just
long run.
Not through Skeg though.
And we did have the mud run around the meteor site.
Yeah, exactly. So there was just some key takeaways with that, was just the idea of collaboration within the region again. And the idea that, when you take some bigger things on like that, you have to consider developing a hosting organization, enhancing some facilities, looking at grants, because we know how much work goes into writing grants and doing those things. Look at including our First Nations communities as well. So lots of good information with that one too. They talked about within that one just that idea of generational travel. There's so many families that are traveling, grandparents, grandkids, great-grandkids, whatever, and just thinking about what do we have for the entire family. And the key takeaway from that one was just that they used the word immersive. People are looking for experiences. When they go places, they want to be thinking about it years later. What's the last one? I'll give you one more. Yeah, it was just the regional collaboration, right? Just helping each other succeed. Such a big piece nowadays, recognizing how our economies are changing, and just that idea of that, the more we work together, the easier it'll be. So
That's fantastic. Go ahead.
One thing I noticed at this one was, in prior ones, there was a huge focus on AI. Like half of the things were containing AI. I felt this one was more focused on, maybe it was just my perception, intermunicipality collaboration and supporting AI slightly with power, that we are behind on power generation, and that this
That's not
huge.
just AI, that's just.
Well, just in general, you're
Yeah.
right. And so it was like if you're not planning on something like this, you're already 10 years behind. It's like, oh my gosh.
I love that, because that ties into a lot of, what I've seen as well, is that it's true. We can use all the AI tools that we want, But if the grid fails and we have no electricity to run it, then it's completely pointless.
Interesting.
I was gonna add too, just with the diversification, you know, Rick talked about identifying the strengths and doubling down, looking at what we're good at. He talked about the fact that 97% of investors don't know where Alberta is, but he said essentially we're at a crossroad where we need to start thinking about Alberta, not just necessarily Canada, especially with Trump and the issues surrounding the tariffs. A lot of investors are waiting to see about us, they're waiting to see about the U.S. and they're now starting to look at Canada in a bigger way because of what's happening in the U.S. So, you know, that idea of we need to take advantage of that. As I said, the Wonder Valley he brought up, but he also stated, you know, as of right now, there were 14 out of 27 projects that are moving forward just in the province of Alberta, large-scale projects. So
That was in West Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting to hear.
Absolutely.
That's the end of my book.
That's fantastic. Is he Councillor Dean?
Okay, so I sent out an email when I thought the meeting was going to be last week because I wanted to share my thoughts. I'm not sure if people had a chance to read that, but most of what I detailed in that email has been covered by the committee. A couple things that haven't been covered. One of the plenary sessions was on U.S.-Canada relations, and the two speakers were Gary Marr and I can't remember the name of the other gentleman, but the theme of their talk is that the provincial government has envoys in Washington and various other economic hotspots in the States to facilitate good conversation and information flow. And it was a little ironic that while we were talking about, or they were talking about that U.S.-Canada relationship economically, Trump relaxed the tariffs. He did the first one of his walkbacks, and the TSX jumped 800 points and the Dow jumped 1,200 points, basically while these guys were talking, and they were checking their phones and making reference to it. So it was just kind of almost comical. A couple of the sessions that I attended that maybe other committee members didn't. One dealt with fostering collaboration with Aboriginal bands, and the link. What was being focused on was a company that helped reforest Aboriginal lands. So Pembina Pipeline is a heavy contributor to the program, and there's examples just to the east of us on the Alexander First Nation where lands have been reforested, and the traditional way of life has been fostered in terms of medicinal plants and food plants that were naturally found in the forest. So it's just a bridge to collaboration and reconciliation. I thought it was an interesting piece that maybe somewhere down the road our county might want to have a look at. I also attended a session that dealt with that socioeconomic evolution piece that Peter Culkin had spoke to the committee about, because I wanted to get a little better understanding of it. And essentially what I believe they're talking about is that in order to have healthy economic growth, you also have to recognize that your communities that are going to host the labor force need a healthy socioeconomic base as well. And the last thing is I just touch again on the Wonder Valley presentation that I think wow. The couple things that stood out that haven't been touched on by other committee members. One was the cost per gigawatt estimated for nuclear power was on the order of $15 billion per megawatt. So in other words, if you're going to build a facility, it's going to cost you roughly $15 billion to build it in order to produce 1 megawatt. Natural gas facilities are more on the order of $2 billion. So in my mind, you know, we live in a province where we have an abundance of natural gas, and certainly you know, Wonder Valley is utilizing that with the Trans-Canada pipeline coming right through that corridor. And while nuclear, I'm sure it's going to come to our province. It's in terms of length of time to build the facility, to produce the power, it's considerably longer. The regulatory process is considerably longer. And so hopefully the Moraine project comes on stream, and our province is going to require more and more electricity, and I just think that natural gas is a natural fit. And last thing was, someone asked, well, I think it was Kyle, he didn't really take questions from the crowd, but he had some pre-prepared questions, and one of the ones he asked the two representatives from the O'Leary group was, you know, is the horse out of the barn? Is there any sense in municipalities trying to recruit more AI data centers and the power, the energy supply that comes along with that, or is it too late? And these two folks felt that there was upwards of $250 billion worth of activity that Alberta could still host because of our, as Kristen had talked about, you know, we have those 4 Ps, right? We have the power, we have the policy, we have the ping, and the last one was people. So I still think that we're in that game, and I don't think we should turn the page on that. And that's it.
Excellent, thank you very much for that. So definitely some exciting projects and exciting times. And did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think everybody has covered a lot of it. I know sitting with Reeve Cush during that aviation presentation, the one comment, and it's on page 31 here, make sure we contact de Havilland to look for ways to partner with them at CYZU. So that's something that is definitely on the action list. The other thing that was incredibly interesting to me, and I mean, as everyone knows, we already have good existing relationships with Invest Alberta, and we work with them as closely as we can. We were part of one of the regional investment initiatives a couple of years ago with our friends and everybody in the Growth RETA, and even some that weren't in the RETA but this just came to attend the event. So we've done, I think, a good job of building a solid relationship with them, but there is certainly more there that I think we can leverage. They do seem to have inherently some staff turnover, and so what happens is that puts us both on a list and off a list from time to time. So we have a couple of good contacts there. So we need to continue to build on those networks within Alberta Innovates, with Invest Alberta, the Trade Commission and Global Affairs. I haven't had a chance to call them to follow up yet, but it is incredibly interesting how well positioned they are to start to get materials for Alberta communities in front of outside foreign direct investors, and that is super exciting. Classically, the main tool that they've used to do that has been the Invest in Alberta Guide, which we haven't advertised in for the last 6 years. And so that's where, as we have the opportunity to move forward and develop some of our own materials, we can get that into the hands of the Trade Commission so that we at least have some representation there. So those are all things that are definitely on my to-do list. The other one was to develop value proposition information on our top 3 investment opportunities. And we've been done that in the past, and we worked very closely with West Fraser and with ANC and with the properties that we have at the airport. But I think there's more work that we can do to try to identify some other sites that we maybe don't have full information on right now, that if we can build out some of those things, that would be good. And I think in regards to identifying our top 2 companies that are export ready, those would be ANC and West Fraser. And we already work with them pretty closely on what they can do with their exports and to expand and to do some of those things. If there's other companies that we can add to that list, I'm quite happy to do so. But to me, those were some of the big takeaways that I got from it as well. But it was an incredible conference, and I'm glad that everyone got so much from it, because it does show the breadth of what we can do.
Go ahead, Ellen.
There was one other thing that I forgot to mention, and I'm not sure if anybody else did. During that last breakfast plenary, just before, I think, before the gentleman from ATB came on, a representative from the EDA gave a brief overview of an investment
Yes.
readiness toolkit.
Yeah.
That should be, I think it's called a dashboard or something. So I look forward to a future meeting for our committee to go through that exercise together.
I think that's a great mention. Yes, Ellen, thank you so much. And we'll put that on a future meeting to be able to take a look at that too.
Okay, perfect. And the only other one that I see here that was kind of mentioned a little bit, David had mentioned about food, but how do we develop a local food corridor? You have on your list here, so.
Well, and that's something that we're currently working on. So we have that ongoing SCOP funding from last year. And as part of that, the focus of that is agriculture. And I'm really happy to say that we actually did a 2-hour interview with Kyle, the gentleman that gave the co-op presentation, as part of that SCOP information gathering. So what happened is I first met him last November when we were at the EDAC conference, and then Sean and I did a follow-up call with him. It was early February, mid-February, somewhere in there. But what's incredible with that organization is it's Federated Co-ops has set aside a very large chunk of money to fund that organization, and what they want to do is to provide support to any group that wants to start a co-op of any kind. And so it doesn't matter if you have 2 people that want to work together, that's all you need. You don't need to have a business plan. You don't need to have, if you're more fully formed than that, then they'll help you further along the process. But it's a really cool, new, interesting tool to use around co-op building that we've never had before. We've always had connections with the ACCA, the Alberta Cooperatives Association, but they've never had a tool even like this. That's why it was so important to have Kyle there to talk on the co-op side. And Shelley, back to what you'd said about the artist co-ops and all of that, they're really awesome. And actually, when I worked in Beaumont, we actually worked to set up an artists co-op, and it's still there and running. There's about 20 of them that run a gallery together. It's amazing how the modeling can really work. And so with the SCOP and around the agri-food part of it, when you look at multiple producers being able to produce and come into and share into a common space of some kind, the co-op modeling is coming out as one of the top recommendations that will probably come out of our SCOP study. So not to, preview too much, but it's interesting that a lot of the research that we're doing on that does reflect back, and we've been trying to tie a bunch of things together, so.
And I think that's something, let's also keep that kind of top of mind going forward for future discussions. Because if there's an opportunity here, we don't have a great deal of co-ops in our area. And I do think that literally from some of the small business to even some of the larger businesses, there is opportunity. Particularly, like you said, in food, we'll see how the SCOP stuff comes out of that. And also, I know personally, like some of the ones that I've been most familiar with were greenhouses, food co-ops, and it's an interesting business model that works. It just, it's just another way that we can get investment in the area. And I really like the idea that it's ownership driven, so, and just to kind of, what I heard you know, I really appreciate it. This makes me feel less bad that I missed it. I'm really glad.
You got the quick download on what all we learned.
Exactly. So from a personal note, thank you as well. And I really love what Kristen said about regional being the new local, because that's something I think that we're coming across at some of these other tables, and you know, it kind of segues into, I had just caught up on yesterday's council meeting this afternoon, and had seen that Michelle Jones from Community Futures had presented to council yesterday, and they're going to be, with their NRED grant, they're actually having a regional, a 3-year position for a regional specialist, so regional economic, I'm missing my word, regional development specialist.
I think that's the working title. I know, I can look it up, I have the RFD here from yesterday. Just
Awesome.
give me 1 second.
So, but in regards to that, and with some of our presentation, there's definitely, I'd like to see some opportunities with our committee to actually go forward and collaborate with some of our regional partners a little bit more than what we have been. So that's something that I want to make sure we're kind of taking forward and look forward to finding ways to facilitate that in the future. So,
Regional marketing strategist, Madam Chair.
regional marketing strategist, perfect. So, excellent. So I think there's definitely some exciting things happening in the region. And I guess this is probably the spot that I can hop in. Actually, bear with me just 1 second so that we have this proper. Because technically, new business is just this one, concepts for discussion. Okay, so actually for 6.1, then does anybody else have anything else to add in regards to EDA? Okay, then I would ask for somebody to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the reports as given on the Economic Development Conference.
Awesome. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor?
Awesome. Thanks, guys. All right, let's move right into 6.2, concepts for discussion for developing a Woodlands County business license. So essentially, this was, of course, precipitated out of the last meeting where we were discussing how to facilitate, you know, a business directory. And we had CAO Mr. Ferris here, who kind of had weighed in. He said with our local program, you know, he said, well, kind of what you're doing, you know, was with a business licensing. And so we had asked administration to bring back some information for us to discuss at the committee level. So then I'll kind of turn it over to you, Bert, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. And yes, it was wonderful to have our CAO make that observation at the last meeting, because in essence, when we brought in the local vendor program last year, that is kind of what it was. We were following the potential guidelines for what we would have for a business license, which is that you would need to have a completed development permit, right? But then we had a marketing program available that if you wanted to, and there was no cost for buy-in, and there's still no cost for buy-in. And now that we've moved it out of the pilot phase into the active phase, we did advertise it again, and we had a couple of people interested, but no one's actually fully started to participate. So I'll just keep up those contacts and we'll keep up that work. But in regards to sort of where that conversation drives us, the intention of having a business license, I mean, I don't want to go too heavily in the presentation unless the committee wants me to, but ideally, what we want to do is to create a mechanism that's a win-win for both sides. We want it to be a win for our business community, in that what we want to do is to help them to create a marketing tool that they can easily use. We want to help them to have better legitimacy, or have instant legitimacy through the fact that they are, you know, recognized by the county. On the county side, the big win for us is knowing who our business community is and knowing the best way for us to reach out and to contact them. And as everyone around this table knows, we struggle to do that because, you know, we don't have an easily accessible business list, right? We've got businesses in various different things, but we don't have an annual mechanism whereby our business owners have to do any kind of a renewal, or we don't have very well-marked storefronts and all of that where we can just knock and walk in and go, oh, hi, can we drop off a poster? Can we tell you this? When most of your businesses are, home-based, we may not even know what people are doing and what are up to and what they're up to. And so, not that we want to create an onerous kind of a process, but the concept is very much to align it as we want it to be a win for both the business owners and for the municipality. So the idea is to do a gentle phase in, so over roughly a 3-year time period. And the idea would be, if we have a $25 annual fee, that's a nominal fee, but it's something that by having people go through that process of either completing an online form or come into the office, or however we're able to kind of wheel it out. The intent is for that every year when they invest that $25, we help them to generate at least $75 in sales for their business. So the idea would be, we want them to be able to know that they can get a 3-to-1 return on that fee. And the idea would be, we do that by making sure that we're doing advertising on their behalf. So multiple times a year, we can advertise the entire business directory, right? We can work with whatever social media tools and promotional tools we have at our disposal to mention and profile individual businesses. We can develop a whole marketing campaign based around, hey, here's the businesses in our county that we're incredibly proud of, and we want to be able to help them to promote themselves. And so there's a lot of tools that we can develop and to do around that. And the other part of it for the business is the win on the connectivity. Again, what's come out of the SCOP discussions we've had so far, and we've done roughly 30 or so interviews of local individuals that are ag producers in one form or another. And a lot of people just don't understand what other people are producing, right? And we had one example in particular where we've got one business owner that is routinely going outside of the county to get vegetables and produce and things that we just had another business in the southern end of the county that they just stopped doing business because they couldn't find a market for what they were producing. So, I mean, the connectivity piece is huge, and a business directory or a business licensing program will help us to build a directory that will help us to be able to foster more of that B2B kind of thing as well. So with that, I mean, the rest of the RFD and everything is there. The idea was to present this as high-level concepts for discussion and to get feedback from the group. So the RFD, the recommendation that's there, is that what we would like is to see the committee provide direction to administration to further the concepts presented, so that we would then be able to develop a Woodlands County business license bylaw for consideration by council. So that's the recommendation that's there. An optional recommendation would be if the council or if the committee doesn't wish to pursue the item, we can accept it as information or table the item as presented, or there's a whole range of activities there in between. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll hand it back over to you and to the committee.
Okay, take it away, Kristen.
I don't know if I'm for or against. I think that's gonna be for the group to kind of figure out. A couple of thoughts though is, one, it says when possible, an online or electronic means of renewal would be implemented. I think for me, that would be non-negotiable. There must be an online or electronic option, not option.
Okay.
Because I have to come back here to sign an affidavit every 2 years for my garden suite, and I hate it. I hate coming here. I hate having to, so I think if you want people to be compliant and happily compliant, make it as absolutely as easy and seamless and fast as humanly possible. What ties into that then is that our website needs to be impeccable. maybe, I don't know if it needs an update or if there's lots of missing links still, but I think if we're gonna be touting people to go to our website to finish this thing, then it needs to be in very, very good shape.
Well, and again, with the website as a whole, we have our communications team that runs and manages the website. We update the individual economic development portion, and I know they're under review with the provider and with some of that, so I can't say for sure where that's going to go, but I agree with you. It has to be as easy to access and do and use as we can humanly or AI possibly make it. Yes.
And I also agree with you about it being online, and then also have the option where somebody can come in and have somebody facilitate them doing it online, or whatever that looks like, but I agree with you. And if it's something that if we're not at the position when it comes time that we're looking to implement this, if we're not in the position where a full website update has happened or something, it could literally be as simple as a QR code takes them to the form. So you're absolutely right, like it's gotta be simple, and it's gotta be something that, the whole idea is, who we're targeting in my mind are the businesses that don't have time to work on their business. One of the biggest frustrations we've had is small businesses, they don't know what resources are available, and that was something echoed as well with what Michelle had said yesterday. And organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, Community Futures, they don't really have the ability either to identify who the business partners are. But if we are able to implement something like this, that is a business license, then by doing that, my hope would be that we can facilitate that list to be able to then promote, organizations like Community Futures, the Business Support Network, BizConnect, stuff like this. And even if it's, if something happens on the grant side, that there's a small business grant that we get notified, then it's, whether it's a Facebook page, whether it's an email that goes out to our businesses in the region, and we can say these are our supports. Because for example, right at the moment, we get a pretty comprehensive newsletter from our regional economic development specialist, Brad Hesteback. And for a lot of businesses, it could even be something as simple as forwarding that email, and not to spam businesses, but just to make sure that people that are so busy working in their business have easy access to information. Oh, is there any other questions?
I
or
see
discussion?
Jeremy's hand is up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
No problem. I was just patiently waiting. The business licensing is an interesting one. I read through the RFP. I guess I understand the basis of the concept here that we're talking about. Maybe I'll start with I don't want to say negatives, but the things that I don't necessarily agree with. Mm-hmm. One thing is, I've heard from local businesses within Woodlands County that one of the benefits of being a rural business in Woodlands County is there is no mandatory requirement for a business license. So to phase in a mandatory business license program when we have no, I don't know if the word is proof, but we have no history of helping develop rural businesses within our municipality. Like maybe way in the past, it's fine, but economic development has been underfunded in Woodlands for a long time. But even to look at within 3 years, creating something that's mandatory and enforceable by bylaw, I mean, how are we going to enforce it? And what's going to happen if they don't want to have a business license? We're going to prevent them from running their business. I think for me, that sounds like a huge overstep for Woodlands County. I guess I just want maybe a discussion around that. Like, if we create a mandatory business license, how are we going to enforce it? And what happens when it doesn't follow through? And why would we want to do that? And why would anybody want to participate in? Is this going to create a situation where actually decreasing the amount of rural businesses occurring in Woodlands, small, like I'm talking cabin-sized businesses?
Actually,
not big business.
no, and that makes sense. Before Bert, I'm actually gonna jump in on this one. I agree with you, because one of the things is how do we sell the importance of this to the businesses? So, because the whole idea is literally it could be free. It's not so that it's cost prohibitive, and the idea, and it's not also gonna be that we're collecting any revenue on it per se. The whole idea is that when it's a volunteer system, we're not getting buy-in. And it's similar to a census, so it's really important to conduct a census so that we can have representation by population and then understand who we have, who's who in the zoo and who we have here. And then we get funding based on the people that are representative with the census results. So if we could conduct a business census, and, often, and that would give us kind of the results that we would need and want, but I don't know that that's a tool we could really use. So in my idea, that's the challenge we're getting. I agree with you, we don't want to be prohibitive to businesses, and we want to make sure that they understand they're getting, like Bert said, 3 times the value. I'd rather them think they're getting 100 times the value. You know what I mean? Like for $25, it's something, it's just to get their name on the registry. It's just so that we can have them counted. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bert.
I think that that's a wonderful point as well. And Councillor Wilhelm, what I wanted to speak to was, thank you for bringing up your comment, because at the administrative level, that is our biggest concern. How do you enforce it? How do you phase it in? How do we create a buy-in, right? I mean, we can talk about, the nature of the bylaw and what it would bring and how we want it to be structured and all of that, but we all know with bylaws, at the end of the day, it comes down to if people aren't compliant, what the heck's gonna happen? And administratively, the short conversations we've had, we're just not quite sure there what the penalty would be, right? So I think that you've hit the nail on the head in how do you enforce it and what would the penalty be? And that's the negative part of making it as a mandatory program, right? And this is where, as you said, Patricia, we've tried the voluntary part of things now for the last 4 or 5 years, and we've done multiple rounds of advertising, we've done direct contacts, we've done all kinds of things, and we're just not creating the buy-in. Our business community they just don't want to take the time to fill out a form, or they don't recognize the value. So that's that part of it. Now the business census idea, I honestly, I don't have an answer to that. That is something that possibly we could do. The flip side of it is if you want to get away from the enforcement part, is you go no stick and all carrot, right? So the question is well, what would we be offering to our businesses to be able to just voluntarily be on the list? What are the bonuses? What are the things of value that we as the county would commit to be giving every one of our businesses that wants to participate annually and be on our business list, right? And I mean, is it a $25 gift card? Is it $25 worth of chamber bucks? I mean, we can flip it the other way quite easily and go, well, what kind of a reward system can we set up? Or do we offer, maybe it wouldn't be grand opening services, but maybe it's recognition at any one of our myriad of county events to say, oh, hey, we're really proud of this business and they're on our business list now and here's their information. There's a lot of really positive ways in which we could just switch to and swing and to promote. So that's where it was an interesting RFD to research and to bring together, because there are so many options on how we do it. It doesn't, the conversation about having a business bylaw, we might be able to find a way for it to be positively reinforced.
And that's a really good point. And one of the other things, I guess, too, is that when I think about it from a compliance perspective.
Just when you're done.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were pointing to the screen. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Jeremy.
Oh, sorry. But yeah, from a compliance perspective, even if it was $25 and it's, and we say it's mandatory, and we get an 80% compliance, we're gonna have 79% better information than we currently have. You know, so that's kind of, oh, and sorry, go ahead.
Me?
Yes,
I can't see
sorry,
you.
Councilor.
So just to continue to build on the conversation, I think that the business program, or the business license program, or however, business directory, is something that we should continue to think about and flesh out on a committee level. Like this could be, like as a committee, sometimes we need to look at things that we want to focus the committee on and put our brain power and our efforts towards. And I think that this could be something that we can continue as a committee, not necessarily foist it off onto Bert to try to solve this problem for us, but we as a committee get together and put our brains together on how we could create a business directory or a business list that, like Bert said, is a carrot for people to be involved in. We could still have a fee. We would just need to have so much value to be part of that directory that people want to pay the fee. They don't have to pay the fee, you know what I mean? We want to change that mindset around what that is. It's not something that we're forcing them to be part of. It's something they actually want to be part of. And I think that if we do this at a committee level, we've got 7 very capable members of this committee. Well, except for Devin doesn't seem to show up very often, but 6 capable members of this committee showing up regularly. We could make this a real push from a committee level to hash this out and flesh out an idea and then bring it to administration and then by extension to council and say, this is the budget that we want. This is how we solve a business directory problem within Woodlands County, and present that from a committee level rather than asking Bert to come up with solutions for us, right? Because it's really hard. He's one person trying to come up with solutions for 7 people. And then to add on to that, I really think I would push the committee members here to reach out to business people in Woodlands that you know and have a conversation about it. What would they see in value? They don't see value in it. Okay, what don't they see the value in it? And what would they like to see that they think would be value for either if it was free or if it wasn't free, if it cost money, what would it get, right? And if we can empower ourselves as a committee to do that grunt work ourselves, we can probably come up with a really excellent solution to present to council in the future. First to our committee, then to administration, then the council, and probably give us a really good project to work on for the rest of 2025. That's my mindset on it. I think the business directory is really awesome and it could be used, it could be built and be a really strong tool for the future. I just think we got to flip the script a little bit and do this at a committee level as opposed to asking administration to solve it.
Actually,
I
I really like that idea. I like where you're going with it. So essentially, to recap, then what we'd be looking at would be tabling this discussion and meeting as a committee separately outside of an ECDEV meeting. Like, are you thinking, is it something that we would have like a committee meeting maybe in June? Oh,
Certainly, like if we set the balance of it or something like that, like again, this doesn't all have to happen in a meeting itself, right? This is stuff that can happen behind the scenes that we can bring to meetings in the future for anybody that's really engaged to wanting to be involved in this. Like maybe not every committee member wants to be involved, but the ones that do want to, we can then empower them to reach out to community members, business community members that they know and have conversations with them, and then bring that back to much more informal conversations as we work through it. And I've been talking over Al a lot. He probably really wants to say something. So
go ahead, Councillor Dean.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Jeremy, to take this discussion to to an ad hoc committee and allow some really good brainstorming to take place. And to that end, I just throw a couple things for people to consider. There have been private businesses over the last 10 or 15 years that have used the concept of a business directory as their own personal revenue driver. So there were, if you guys remember, a lady by the name of Dana Tartal. Do you guys recall her name? she had an online business directory that businesses could sign up for, and she had a website that would advertise it. And I just don't really think that company it didn't flourish like she had hoped it would. But the whole thing, I believe, that a business would be looking for is exposure. And so from a committee point of view, when we start to brainstorm, really, I think that's the focus is how do we help businesses advertise their services. And to me, as a small business owner, if you can prove your worth to me, then yeah, I'd consider an investment. And so that lady, Kristen, her and her husband lived just down the road from you. Do you know who I'm talking about?
What was the first name?
Dana Tartell?
No. I bet
You
my
don't?
mother-in-law
Okay.
knows her though.
Yeah, probably. I think they moved. I think her and her husband moved shortly after the election. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is I think the focus of a business director, the benefit to the business owner is exposure, is advertising. And that's going to be our obstacle, is how can we come up with an advertising vehicle that's going to not be a make-work project for our admin team, and yet still have value to the business owners.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Dave.
So, thank you very much, committee. I think we've got some interesting things to work on here. One suggestion I was going to make is we do have that ability, and Councillor Dean referred to it a bit, the ad hoc committee. We could set up a subcommittee of the whole and then have a meeting to do a future discussion. Or if we want to invite in a number of business owners to get their input as well, we could do some kind of a workshop style event as well. So, I mean, I would be happy to do either one or both of those, whatever the committee would like to do. We can find a way to organize and make those kinds of things happen. The second part is I just want to put it back in everyone's brain so that we remember. We do have our application that we had submitted under this year's or last year's intake of the SCOP program, which is solely directed towards business retention and expansion activities. And one of the things we had identified in that grant application is we really want to be able to build connectivity in our business community with those funds that we've applied for. So unfortunately, we haven't heard one way or the other yet as to whether we've received that or not, but we do have the potential to even have a larger pool of funds, should that be approved, that we could actually apply to this project as well as we go forward this year. So just something to keep in mind with all of that. But I do like that idea of if we have a committee of the whole or a subcommittee of the whole, and the potential for the workshop as well, whatever the committee would like to do.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I really appreciate what Jeremy and Al spoke to, because when I first read this, my immediate thought was like, that's what it's about. Is it just about somehow promoting the businesses that we have within our municipality? But the first thing that came to mind for me was just that word license has such a negative connotation to it as well. You know, you think about, oh, I have to go renew my driver's license. Oh, I forgot I got to go buy my fish. Like, license just has, marriage, like all these licenses, right? And so that's where I like the idea of, a business directory being an opportunity for a business to register themselves within the county simply and solely for the reason of being able to promote themselves, right, and their product.
Absolutely.
So,
No, I think that's great, and then with that, I guess I'd be looking for a motion to, whatever the committee would like, whether we want to make a motion to create a committee, subcommittee, and go from there. Sorry, I see Alan popped in. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Dean. Oh, no, okay, sorry.
I thought he was gonna make the motion. I was like,
Go ahead, Shelley.
I guess I would like to make a motion that we table this for tonight and we create a ad hoc committee of interested participants from this ECDev committee to develop a recommended plan for a business registration system of some sort.
Excellent.
Get rid of the
And
word license.
business
Because I think you're right. I think that's what triggers me when I read it, is
Yeah.
the word license. Because
Immediately, it's like,
language is incredibly important, and I agree with you.
I'll be like, I'm not signing up.
A
And
registration.
I'm on the committee, so
That sounds better.
there's a problem.
Maybe not a registry, we won't go registries, but maybe.
Something.
That's not a bad word.
So I'm sorry, Shelley, I'm gonna ask you to repeat that for me just a little bit. But, and the word I wrote down was exposure opportunity, so we could call it the Woodlands Exposure Opportunity, but that's maybe not a good idea either. So, okay. Go
our
ahead,
wordsmith
Shelley.
isn't here.
So you wanted, so what I would say is, instead of tabling, because if we table, then we put it off to a
Okay.
future meeting, then we've got to reintroduce it. in
Right.
I just
some
didn't,
way,
I
shape, or
wanted to
form.
table this motion, whatever it was.
Okay, so what if we say in the motion that you say that we won't pursue a business license bylaw at this time. However, we want to establish a subcommittee of the Economic Development Committee, of the entire Economic Development Committee, to further analyze and come back with a different recommendation.
A business registration opportunity or something.
Yeah, or plan.
Okay,
That doesn't have to be the name of it for.
Correct.
so
Yeah, That sounds pretty good, Bert.
does that, okay, so let me wordsmith that and then I'll read it back. Madam Chair, just give me one moment, please.
Use some AI, ChatGPT,
Alright.
right?
It's hard to think on your feet, especially in the evening.
Well, normally that's a
The
Christmas.
Bob Business Opportunity Board.
Oh. But no, you're absolutely correct, like the language is so important, it's just the outcome that I'd love to be able to see, especially if we have a disaster. And that's something, tomorrow there's a roundtable with Community Futures on disaster recovery for businesses. And I had attended one through EDA in Grand Prairie last year. And it's so important with businesses, like we address the social impact, we address emergency services. But it's something, if you have to know who your businesses are in case of an emergency, to know how to help them and how to be able to contact them. And currently, without having any kind of a business list, that's something that we also don't have the opportunity to support them in that way.
I think there's lots of benefits to having some sort of list. It's just, how do you get people to participate?
We've been talking about it for
Yeah.
years.
Since we started,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Rowan.
2 hands.
Trying to pay attention without talking over anybody. So we did have a discussion at the last council meeting. We just adopted a new set, or what? An amendment to our procedure bylaw, specifically around committees and stuff like that. So striking a subcommittee on a committee that we have already might procedurally not work all that well, and I think that our CEO is actually quite against doing stuff like that.
Okay.
Yes,
Just wait,
so-
just
sorry,
let me
yeah,
finish.
sorry, my apologies.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay. So with regards to that, like, we can make a motion. We don't necessarily need. We can make a motion in the RFP that we don't want to create a bylaw around business license right now. But I do think that what we can do and what we should do is take this offline. Like, I don't know if we need to strike a subcommittee for the interested members of our committee itself to get together to discuss this and bring information together, right? That stuff can happen informally, and then once we have some information, or we have some direction on what we might want to do as we meet informally, we can then set an agenda item to discuss with the council members or the committee members that aren't participating, if there are any, right? Maybe everybody does want to be part of it, but I think I just don't want to create a kind of a bureaucratic situation where we're trying to have the committee members be engaged and and have this goal that we're moving towards by having to set like really strict meetings around it where we could have more informal discussions around it. And I don't know, Bert, what are your thoughts on that, or what's the rest of the committee's thoughts on that? Like, I mean, I think this can be done offline. We don't need to set meetings for it. We can set meetings informally and have discussions and meetings with other business owners as well. But it's just, I see kind of being restrictive like that and setting meetings might actually like limit our ability to accomplish this goal. And I just was wondering what everybody's thoughts were on that.
I think that's excellent feedback, and I definitely want to keep the process as simple as possible. My only concern is that we set a date to have some kind of an outcome to bring forward.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, sorry to jump in really quick, but I think that the date should be something around early September. Like council's gonna start having budget discussions then, so if this has budgetary impacts, it's gonna be something that comes from the committee to council for approval if there are budgetary impacts to implement our plan. So, that gives us 4.5, 5 months to gather information, put our heads together, come up with solutions, bring it back to the committee for full discussion, and then we can generate a motion or an action out of that, I think, in my opinion.
Okay, what is the committee's thoughts on this?
I really like the sound of that plan.
Excellent,
I thought that was a motion. No?
excellent, okay, go ahead.
So two things. First, Counselor, I'm sorry, I apologize for my interjection earlier. I know because the council meeting was just yesterday, we haven't had a chance to report or to bring back that revised terms of reference. We felt it was too late to include and to bring on to this agenda, or I should say, not terms of reference, the updated bylaw, but we will bring that forward to the next ECDEV committee meeting. So thank you for mentioning that and for having us keep that in mind. That information in mind, what I am proposing is a friendly amendment, Shelley, if this makes sense. Under the options, we do have the motion that the Woodlands County Economic Development Committee accepts this item as information. We make that motion 1. Motion 2 then, that the Economic Development Committee holds a workshop to discuss options for creating a tool to increase business exposure. And then we have the second motion, we can set a date to that. And when we say workshop, yes, we can have lots of conversations around how we would construct the workshop and what we want to bring forward and all of that, but it gives us an opportunity to set one specific item on the calendar that is outside of our regular meeting schedule.
Okay, how does the group feel about that? Okay, perfect, I see Jeremy's thumbs up. Awesome, any suggestions on a date for, like, you wanna look into, say, for example, like early September potentially, Jeremy, for a workshop? So that we could present in our 3rd week?
I think you have to do it sooner than that.
Okay, so you wanna see June?
Yeah.
Yeah, and my concern is we don't yet know what our preliminary management budget schedule is, but I suspect that where we had normally presented an initial budget in October, it may be as early as September that we may have to have that available.
Okay.
So I do like that June option, just as you said, if there is anything budgetary. And then the second part of that is we should know, hopefully very quickly, where we are at on that SCOP. Because if we do have money this year that we can apply, then that's something that we can have that discussion around at that workshop as well.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Dean.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that we have a doodle poll rather than trying to figure out a date right now.
Agreed,
Fair enough.
and yeah, definitely. Okay, so then I would entertain the first motion be that we accept this discussion as information. Awesome, and so Shelley may,
I'll make that motion.
okay, any further discussion on that one? We'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and the second motion is that, go ahead.
Just if you need me to reread it,
Yes,
friendly
please.
amendment, that the Economic Development Committee holds a workshop to discuss options for creating a tool to increase business exposure, and we'll say possibly in June, or as soon as possible, maybe.
I'd love to make that.
Go ahead, Councillor Mullen.
Did somebody say they wanted to make that motion? I can make it.
Okay, perfect.
So I'll make a motion for the Economic Development Committee to set up a workshop to discuss we're going to call it, business directory and development of a business directory within Woodlands via Doodle poll.
Okay, excellent. Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Alrighty, awesome, that's passed. Great conversation, you guys, thank you so much. Okay, so in looking at time, of course, we're kind of moving things right along. So under the work plan updates, I think with the essence of time, the work plan updates are actually all included within the package. So I think we can open it up for discussion without getting into everything that was there. So I basically is the group okay with that? Okay, then I'll kind of turn it over. Go ahead, Councillor Dean.
I was just going to make a motion to accept the work plan as presented. I think we've all had a chance to read it.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, just 1 second, go ahead. Bert.
Madam Chair, I did just have that one item to add, and that was the May 10th and 11th White Court Trade Fair. So we
Right.
haven't sent a work schedule out yet, but we certainly do need workers at the booth on the 10th and 11th. So just to put that on everybody's calendar and to see if you are available to work a couple of hours on either of those days, that would be excellent. We're working with Public Works, and we do have a setup and a tear down crew with Woodland staff. And our format will be very similar to what it was last year, where we'll have a booth with information, likely focusing on the census and on some of the recent communications coming out from the county, as well as with our door prize items. And the idea is to, again, run a fish pond or a pond of some kind for the kids to be able to fish and play in and to do all of that. And I'll be furthering developing that over the next couple of weeks as Tegan comes on board. So that was going to be one of the first things that we have an ability for us to work on together, which will be incredibly exciting. But I did just want to add that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
What were the dates, sorry?
May 10th and 11th.
Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah, the Mother's Day weekend, the Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, and also, you had a question, Kristen?
So, sorry, the focus of the booth at the trade fair is the census?
Well, we'll have census information there because the census is underway.
Okay.
But generally what happens is the booth itself is to promote everything that Woodlands County is offering, right? And so in the past, we've had Ag Service Board information there as well as our information and all of that. Council is usually there, usually rotating in and out on a routine basis and all of that. So that's really the important thing. We've had the dates out there now for a while where everybody knows what it is and when it is, but so far we haven't had any volunteers or anyone come forward to sign up to say, yep, I want to work, or yes, I want to be there. But in an ideal situation, it's good to have at least 2 to 3 people in our booth at any one time. So it's over the 2 days, 8 hours one day and 10 the next, something like that. So I mean, it's wonderful to have people there at any time. You can be there throughout the day, whether it's for an hour or a 3-hour shift, whatever you're available for. It's all appreciated. I mean, Tegan and I will be there throughout the weekend and all of that, but it's always great to have other people that are in the booth as well as much as we can. So.
Okay, I wanted to ask Councillor Wilhelm, you had brought forward the Rural Economic Development Toolkit, and I think there's some really good information in there, and I would like to be able to have a discussion around that, but I'm wondering if you'd be amenable to us moving that to our next meeting? Or is
Yeah,
that
so-
something, oh, go ahead.
Read my mind. So I did want to talk about it, but obviously I'm not there and I don't want to have a discussion about it when I'm online because you can't have a fulsome discussion about it. So what I want, and I also want to be a little bit more prepared for it. And so we can have a really good discussion on it, because even today when we're talking about business license and stuff and me talking about doing workshops or empowering the committee to do more than just come to meetings and make decisions at meetings or have suggestions at meetings, it kind of came out of that toolkit itself. So I do think that there's a lot of value there if we have a really good conversation about it and learning to empower ourselves as a committee to do more than do more than what we are. Not that we're not doing great things, but to do more than what we are and to be empowered to actually do more, be more part of the economic development. So yeah, let's move it to another meeting and I'll come more prepared for that and we can have a really good conversation about it.
Okay, excellent. Let's make a plan then, Bert, to move that to the May meeting, please.
Okay.
As an actual agenda item.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we'll put it as its own agenda item.
I like it.
Okay.
Under
I read
new
through it,
business.
there's some really good information in there.
I agree, there really is. And there's one more thing, because we do have a motion on the floor from Alan, but there's one thing I will add just in here about the growth rate update. And so very briefly, we had the 2-day social impact lab out at the casino. It was very well attended by essentially the region. There was attendees from Hinton, Drayton Valley, Athabasca, Big Lakes. There was, I can't remember if it was 7 Indigenous communities that were represented. And it was a really very good event. And I attended the Social Impact Lab's information sessions prior, and they have a very different and interesting way to facilitate these workshops that's very good. So key highlights very quickly. They explored regional assets, infrastructure challenges, and economic opportunities. A major theme was defining who is we, rethinking decision-making and inclusive representation in our region, mapping priorities using a now, next, later framework, and began shaping a new RETA membership model. Also, the session closed with a strong sense of energy and commitment across partners. And once again, similar to the session that we had last year, what I really appreciated from it was it's the one table that I've been able to be involved with where we've been able to connect with some of our Indigenous partners and understand what some of their needs are in their communities and what they want. So one example was East Prairie Métis Settlement is looking at trying to access a 3-number highway, to have a highway run from potentially from their area into maybe the Swan Hills that come cut across that way, and have meetings coming up with Alberta Transportation. So these are some of the kind of discussions that are really key to be able to have at a regional table that could impact us in Woodlands, and how we could maybe work with some of those regional partners to facilitate conversations around not just what project it is, but the infrastructure that we can do to support the communities that are in those areas. So that being said, sorry, go ahead.
I did see the draft press release today, and so the press release will be out in the next little while. As soon as we get it, I'll make sure we send it out to all of our committee members.
Okay, excellent. So that being said, we do have a motion on the floor to accept the work plan updates as information. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and we have Jeremy still.
My camera's slow.
Perfect. Okay, alrighty, so moving right along for the blue sky discussion. Same thing, under the tariff resources, all the information was there. I'm sure we've all read it, so it's something that I would ask the committee if they have any discussion, or to go ahead, Shelley.
I'll make a motion that we accept the trade and tariff resources as information.
Okay, and is there any discussion on this? If not, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Awesome, thank you very much. Okay, under information items and our committee reports. So actually, my apologies, bear with me for a second when I get there.
I think that was it. We didn't have an info items one.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, because I didn't think I had anything on it. Okay, so actually then we can skip right into going to number 10. Our closed meeting is under the Economic Development, Investment and Attraction and